Well, it was great to have Danny Sheridan on. Unfortunately, he ran out of time. He had to go, but he promises to come back and join us later, closer to the season now. Unlike us in May, where we're willing to make every prediction, Danny's going, hey, give me a little bit of time here. We're still months away.
But I love what he said, Kip. Did you hear that? He gave Auburn 0. That's a big O, ladies and gentlemen. That's a big O. 0 chance of making the national championship game, giving Clemson at Alabama 6-5 odds to make the championship. That's amazing. That shows you how much Alabama and Clemson is head and shoulders above everybody else, Kim.
They certainly are now. Let's. There was one team I want to talk about in the West before we move on to the East, and that's LSU. Their win total 8.5 from Vegas, Legend. They play the brutal West schedule. They play Florida every year as one of their crossover opponents. And this year they go to Texas in week 2 in Austin, Texas. Yes. That's quite a big bite to take on. Is this team going to win more than 8 games?
No, I think so, Kip. I think this LSU team is good. You got Joe Burrow coming back. You know, you got a team that recruits 5 stars and 4 stars consistently. I like Coach O. I just think he will be O-ing forever against Alabama and Nick Saban. But when it comes to playing these Mississippis, these Mississippi States, these Kentuckys, these Tennessees, LSU is head and shoulders above these teams. And I think that 9 wins – it's surely doable for the LSU Tigers this year.
Well, they do pick up as their rotating opponent from the East, Vanderbilt, so that's not too scary.
That's a toughie.
Let's go to the SEC East. Really, there's only 2 teams that stand out. They're the top 2, Georgia and Florida. What do you think of these numbers? This allows Georgia the wiggle room to lose 1 game and still be over, but they're scheduled pretty tough again. Not only do they have their usual SEC dances and a game at Auburn late in the year, but they pick up Notre Dame and Texas A&M as a cross opponent.
Yeah, the thing about Georgia is this is a loaded football team. We've discussed this on this show. 7 future offensive linemen that will be high NFL draft picks in the NFL. They got Swift in the backfield. He's a surefire first-round pick. And a lot of folks have Jake Fromm as a top 5 future NFL pick. So this team is loaded top to bottom. They have recruited. I read the other day where they have 3 5-star linebackers in their linebacking core. So they are loaded. I expect them to run all the way to Alabama like we've said before, Kip. But we know the truth about Georgia. They'll cover that 10.5, but they won't cover when it comes to the SEC title game.
That's interesting. Florida, 8.5. I think that number, is pretty testy too. Dan Mullen maybe set the bar really high for a second season. Do you expect them to be really solid again? I mean, they have the demanding assignments. They're going to open with Miami, a team that they used to play every year, and Miami's kind of in disarray, so maybe that's not that ominous a game. But it's still a quality opponent as opposed to opening with their traditional cupcake.
I think the Florida fan base is one of the most delusional fan bases in the SEC right now, Kip. And I say this because I've said this on continuous moments throughout my career that when it comes to the SEC, if you don't have 10 5-stars, you don't have 44-star players on your rosters, you cannot compete with the Alabamas of the world, Kip. And Florida just has not recruited to that level. They got a lot of 3-stars and a lot of 4-stars, and what that means, Kip, is 8 or 9 wins in the regular season and no real threat at a national championship. I think Florida's the most overhyped team going into this season. Georgia will dominate this division. Florida will be the biggest disappointment, in my opinion.
Wow, and Legend was high on this Florida team last year. He was one of the few who predicted that they would have a big year. Okay, we only got about 45 seconds. Our favorite whipping boy. I hate to throw them on the carpet again. But I think the number for Tennessee is a little bit steep.
That's a little high,
They've got 6, and if you'd say, well, they probably play 4 cupcakes, not so fast. BYU comes to Knoxville week 2. That's always a legitimate outfit. And later in the year, you know who they host?
Who?
The UAB Blazers, and they're not a walkover.
That could be
so
tough.
That's 2 of their non-conference games, and from the cross section in the West, they pick up Mississippi State, which is no easy task either.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about Tennessee that I noticed this week in my review. Callaway and Jennings are two of the best wide receivers in the SEC. If they can get some quarterback consistency, Tennessee could meet this number or exceed it by one, but we know Tennessee is rocky flop at the moment.
It's pretty sad when if we can only be 6-6, weekend preview coming up right after this.
6-6, baby.
6-6.